Welcome to The Green Pretenders,
a sustainably challenged podcast.
My name is Simon.
And my name's Sian, and this week we are talking about all things fair trade and what it means when a product that we buy has any kind of little stamp on it telling us that that product is somehow good for the environment or good for the world.
Yes, exactly. So obviously the most famous one, I guess, is the fair trade as one word logo.
Mm-hmm.
It's blue and green and black. And what does it mean, Sian, to be fair trade?
This is the question, isn't it? And actually, I was talking about this with some friends recently because we had some coffee and we were talking about how this expensive brand of coffee is about 3 times the price as Morrison's own brand. And Morrison's own brand is just as good. But then a friend said, "Oh, but is Morrison's own brand fair trade?" And then we talked about the guilt of that. And then another friend said, but what is fair trade? And then we all just sat in silence. And we realised that we've decided that seeing that a product is fair trade is a very good thing. Yes, that's good, okay. But actually, none of us could describe what it means. So, fair trade put an emphasis on sustainability. And that comes in 3 pillars. So you've got sustainability from an economic, environmental and social perspective. And with fair trade, the brand, their main goal is the economic standpoint, whereas other quite common stamps like the Rainforest Alliance, for example, they claim to be more concerned with the environmental and social side of it.
So basically it means that if I buy something fair trade, the farmer got a decent wage for it.
Exactly, and that's, I think, what I've always comfortably assumed. I'm thinking this means that they're getting paid correctly. But is that the case?
Yeah, so we had a look at the Fairtrade website and there's a lot of information on there.
We found something that explains how there is the Fairtrade minimum price, the FMP, and where it exists, that is the minimum price that must be paid by buyers to the producers of a product. But the key point there is where it exists in brackets, but that doesn't really give you much clarity as a consumer when you're making that choice to buy.
Yeah. You had an example of coffee growers in Nicaragua, right?
Yeah, so they were working with a fair trade co-op, and Fairtrade were encouraging them to switch to organic coffee. And that resulted, in the end, in the Nicaraguan farmers being paid even less because the net income went down for them because the costs were higher to produce this coffee and the yields were lower. So whilst the work of fair trade there was great from an environmental perspective, it actually had the opposite effect as to what we might assume is happening as buyers. I would never assume that buying a fair trade product means that the farmer gets even less money down the line.
I mean, obviously, this could be also a transitional phase, but it's definitely not great, if the farmer actually gets less money. And
obviously, we've kind of started this episode, we've gone straight in for the conspiracy, which is not really our intention, but this is the kind of stuff that was surprising us. And I guess it's just shining a light on how we might assume that we are making a good choice, and that allows us to be quite pious and we feel quite off the hook. And we need to be a bit more switched on to exactly what it means. Something that I found probably the most confusing about it is that there's no regulation for retailers on how much they can price up a product based on it being fair trade. So if you're an independent retailer and you're going to sell some products that have the fair trade stamp on them or Rainforest Alliance stamp or whatever it may be, you have free reign to price that up as much as you want. And whilst I would love to believe that the world is full of very conscientious and moral people, we do know that that's maybe not always the case and that business and profits drive people's intentions. So what you could have is a retailer who's purposely chucking on a couple of extra quid onto a product because they know that people will buy it thinking, oh, it's fair trade, I'll pay that money. But there's no one saying where that extra profit goes, so it just goes straight into the pocket of the retailer. That kind of freaked me out quite a bit.
Yeah, and that is exactly what might have happened in your case with the expensive coffee that you were talking about with your friends compared to Morrison's own brand. I know, for example, that Lidl's own brand coffee, so Lidl has many different types of coffee, but the single origin coffee from, say, India, Kenya, Nicaragua, Guatemala, they actually have the fair trade logo. Own brand doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be fair trade, but it often means that it's cheaper. So that means somewhere along the line, someone is actually making a profit on fair trade that is not the actual farmer that grew that coffee.
Exactly. Like, we mustn't confuse price with how much good it's doing. And actually, with these coffee bags that I was talking about, the expensive one, the branded one, is really beautiful design on the packet, and it's got a lot of interesting little slogans, and it's got a kind of prosaic story on the back of it. And whereas the Morrison's one, it's just a plain bag. And so even looking at that, you think, well, hold on, there's probably a lot more money going into the marketing and design of this product. Like, that's maybe why I'm paying through the nose. It's nothing to do with how this money is spent further down the line, necessarily.
And also, don't think that just because something is fair trade, you've traded off, excuse my pun,
I love it.
all other environmental aspects, like where that product comes from, how long it has taken, how much CO2 it has produced to make your way into your kitchen. Because coffee from Nicaragua that is fair trade is still coffee from Nicaragua. So I can't even pronounce the, the name of that country. It still had to be shipped, and that means it's still produced a lot more CO2 than maybe, I don't know, herbal tea from your garden. So maybe what we're saying is, or as you've said before, is that it's not a trade-off. You can't just say, oh, I'm buying fair trade, therefore I don't have to be mindful of what I buy and what I consume and where these things come from.
Yeah, I know it's probably a horrible stereotype, but I get a bit obsessed with the idea of very wealthy people who live in London. And I can just hear them over a coffee saying something like, we buy everything fair trade. We buy absolutely everything fair trade. And probably not really going any further than that to like making any other eco-conscious decisions in their life. It's more of a badge of honour. Everything's fair trade in our house. And it's like, yes, we need to go beyond that.
So let's talk a little bit about eco-labels in general. Now, there are a lot of eco-labels out there, and there's even a website called ecolabelindex.com if you're interested. It's the largest global directory of eco-labels, currently tracking 457 eco-labels in 199 countries and 25 industry sectors. So you see, it exploded, but it just shows that there are a lot, and as a consumer, it can be very, very overwhelming and difficult to navigate through all these eco labels. And as we said before, like, we don't want to just check for any label and then go like, okay, fine, it has a label. I have no idea what it means, but it has a label. It's fine, we can buy this. Because there is such a thing as greenwashing, which I have mentioned before.
Oh yeah, tell us more.
There is actually no law that classifies these labels, or that kind of regulates these labels. The labels themselves, so fair trade obviously regulates all the products that are fair trade, but it's self-regulated, and that's just not very helpful. Now, what is greenwashing? So it comes from the term whitewashing, and it basically means that companies claim to be environmentally friendly when they're actually not. So you can say that something is a green product, or a bit of a greener version of a product, or it's eco-friendly, when actually, that there's no regulation. So it could mean anything. It could mean nothing. Companies give you something vague like, we try our very best to be more eco-friendly. Well, that literally means nothing. It's like, oh, someone in a boardroom has said, guys, we should really be more eco-friendly, and then everyone was like, yeah, we really should. Let's print it on our marketing stuff.
If anything, I think you're being very generous to the people in that boardroom by allowing them the integrity to say we should be more eco-friendly, because I feel like in a lot of boardrooms it's more like, we should make people think that we're eco-friendly.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. Actually, you're so right. Yeah, probably what happened was like, hey guys, companies that have an eco label sell 20% more. We should also get an eco label. And then they looked at fair trade and were like, nah, that's really complicated. Let's make our own. Let's just write Happy Earth on a label and then print it. And sales go up. And we, as the consumers, again, have all the responsibility to actually navigate through the forest of eco labels and find out what is legit and what isn't.
And as we've kind of talked about, it's not easy to do. You know, we've done a bit of Googling around fair trade, the certification, and that wasn't easy. And before we started recording, I found a blog that said just go on challengethelabel.org and you can put the label in and they'll verify if their claims are truthful and that they convey what has actually been achieved. So I went to challengethelabel.org, and what happens is a website called Moonglam, and it's Vietnamese beauty secrets. And there's a lot of women carrying pink handbags, and it's all in Vietnamese. So I hate to sound conspiratorial, but why are none of these websites existing?
Yeah.
Basically, we need to all be savvy and wary, and not distrusting necessarily, but not let ourselves off the hook, as Simon said. What was that amazing pun? Don't trade off on fair trade.
Don't trade off your eco-consciousness by just choosing a label.
Yeah. And we have a lot of friends, or we know people who, you know, grow their own veg in their garden, and things like that. I think more and more are the only way that we can fully know the impacts of our choices, because you've seen the process and you've seen the production line from start to finish. You've taken full ownership of something, you know, you've grown it yourself or you've brewed it yourself or whatever it may be. But I think unless that's the case, we have to kind of take everything with a little pinch of, hopefully, fair trade salt.
Yes. A lot of British products actually don't have a fair trade label. Why? Because we have labour laws in Britain, and the standard is so much higher that no one actually is a farmer if it's not a little bit lucrative. Whereas we need labels like fair trade because the standards in often the global south are so low. It's not regulated, and it's exploitative, and the people who exploit these people are the people in the global north often. So that can't be a trade-off either. Oh, I buy fair trade so we can keep consuming products from different parts of the world.
It's not easy to turn a profit as a farmer in the UK either. But yeah, I think exploitation is the key word. Like you said, at least farmers in this country are not being actively exploited.
Yeah.
Here's a stupid question. Could coffee ever be grown in the UK?
No. Coffee, actually, I once looked into that. I also worked for Costa Coffee, so maybe that's where I get this knowledge from. But it can actually only be grown at a certain height and in a certain climate. So I think it is around the equator where most of the coffee comes from, and also kind of in like mountainous areas.
What about tea?
Tea. Herbal tea, for sure, can be grown in the UK.
Apparently, a kind of tea called Camellia sinensis, the common tea plant, can be grown in your own garden.
Ooh.
In fact, according to Google, it thrives in UK conditions. All it needs is a temperate climate, plenty of moisture, and acidic soil.
Nice.
We can create a mini tea plantation in our own back gardens. Who's got a garden? Who wants to take on the tea challenge?
Take on the tea challenge, please.
Yeah. There's even a little picture here of someone germinating their tea plant in an eggshell, in a little bit of soil. What an adorable thing.
That's cute. I personally think, and I'm, might be stepping onto thin ice, but I would argue that a lot of the products that we import could actually be grown in the UK with the right infrastructure. Like with a little bit of effort and the right investment. I've often looked into, like vertical farms, indoor farming, things like that. I actually heard, I think it was a couple of years ago, that they successfully grew chia seeds in the UK for the first time because of the climate crisis. The temperatures are changing, the winters are getting milder, even though sometimes the weather is getting extremer, so that is a challenge for farming. But chia seeds, which is such a hyped product, a superfood.
That's the definition of irony, isn't it, really? That the climate change has facilitated the ability to grow something that we'd otherwise have to import, which affects the climate negatively.
Yeah. Same as British wine.
Yeah.
So, agricultural revolution in the UK.
Woo!
That's what I'd love to see.
I love it. So if we were to sort of round up the thoughts that we'd like to take forward from this, how would you describe it?
Well, I would say if you are a consumer,
guilty as charged,
first check whether you actually need to buy that product, whether it is something that you can get locally grown. And if you can't, by all means, do buy fair trade. But keep in mind that it's not a trade-off.
Yes. Don't let yourself be too self-satisfied, essentially.
Yeah.
And if you are mega rich and looking to invest in the agricultural revolution right here in the UK.
Yes, exactly. The green pretenders are starting it.
Yeah.
Living in London, not owning a garden.
Yeah. You gotta start somewhere.
You gotta start somewhere. And I'm growing some chilies on my windowsill. I can't actually check the progress at the moment because I'm actually in Austria at the moment as we speak. But my mum is growing her own squash and chard and many things. So if you do have a garden, get into growing your own veg.
Yeah.
It sparks joy.
Yeah, please send us pictures of your homegrown veg because I think we do have some listeners or a lot of listeners that do that, and it's such a beautiful thing. I feel like it gives me endorphins to see a picture of a person with their proud homegrown item.
100%.
And also, if anyone is listening that does have an in with either the Rainforest Alliance or Fair Trade, then please get in touch because I do feel like the figures and the facts are not readily available or transparent, and we would like to understand it a bit better. So if that's you and you have that knowledge, share it with us, please.
100%. We love to be corrected. We love to be held to account. We love to be educated as well. I mean, we're the grain pretenders. We're the grain pretenders for a reason.
We should do a whole episode like that one day.
We should, yeah, in different accents.
Is it time for our eco whoops and poops?
I think it is. Eco whoop. What is yours, Sean?
My eco whoop, we are in the midst of it. It is #secondhand September. So if you are an internet using person, you might be getting a bit sick of the monthly, weekly campaigns, trends, hashtags. There's always something to be aware of and to be buying into, isn't there? But this is a goodie. #secondhand September. So the challenge is the whole of this month, we should be looking to not buy anything new. Don't go on ASOS. Don't buy it off the rack in H&M. You can use Vinted, you can use Depop, you can use eBay, you can nip to your local charity shop. Heck, you can trade with a friend. You can ask your parents if they've got any hand-me-downs they'd like to give you. Anything but buying new. And increasingly we are finding that if we want to really solve the fast fashion problem, it's not even enough to be buying like ethical fashion. It's just, we just don't need more clothes. So yeah, I'm really enjoying Secondhand September. I did actually walk past Trade, which is a charity shop that Simon and I talk about a lot because they're great. And they did have a sale and I got a vintage velvet bomber jacket.
Oh my God, I can't wait to see you in it.
It's so cool. And you could say, I didn't need that. And you would be right. But I bought it anyway.
And also, if you buy secondhand, you don't even need to bother with all the labels and the greenwashing and the, oh, we're so good and we're saving the planet. Because at the end of the day, saving the planet means, yeah, not buying new.
Yes. What is your eco whoop?
My eco whoop ties in with the little home visit, as I said, I'm just doing to Austria. So I've talked about my teeny little niece. She's 7 months old. She's absolutely adorable. Such a happy, lovely child. And my sister's very environmentally conscious. And she is only using reusable nappies or at times even going nappy free. So my niece just does her business when she needs to. And my sister spends all her time with her, so she notices when that might be happening. It's not 100% accurate, but my sister's like, oh, okay, do you need a wee? And then she puts her in a portable potty, or when they're out and about on a walk, just holds her in a bush. And then she either does it or she doesn't. It's a bit trial and error, but that's raising a child. It's just, you're trying what you can. And then the reusable nappies that she uses overnight, they're made of cotton. You can actually wash them. They have a lovely pattern on them. They look really nice and cute, and they're very sustainable. And you can even, when your child's outgrown them, pass them on.
I love it. It's like sometimes you have to kind of put two fingers up to what people might think of what you're doing. It's like the breastfeeding thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to see someone breastfeeding in public, and it's like, that doesn't matter, really. It's nothing to do with you. So if someone doesn't want to see a child on a potty in public and on a portable potty, it's like, well, that's only their problem.
Yeah. No, I'm very, very proud of my sister of being a great mom and doing this so brilliantly. And also, because it is very stressful, but also, keeping in mind that we're all in a climate crisis and we need to save this planet.
Yeah. And speaking of great mums and reusable nappies, we do have a wonderful friend who has an Instagram account dedicated to the beauty of the reusable nappy, rainbows.and.fluff. If you're a new mum and you're kind of looking for inspiration or for just to see how gorgeous these nappies look, follow her on Instagram.
Do it. And also don't be discouraged. It is a bit of a process to get used to, and there's a lot of washing to do at the beginning, but it's a process.
And do you know what? This is probably the most apt link we've ever had from an eco whoop to an eco poop.
Brilliant transition.
I would like to present my eco poop from this sustainable nappy, and my eco poop coming at you is limited menus because of the pandemic. I feel like a lot of places, kind of the food to go, like Pret and Greggs and things like that, they're putting on limited menus at the moment, understandably. But it seems like everywhere you go, the thing that's had the chop is the veggie options. And it's just proof, I guess, that however much there is a kind of uprising of vegetarianism, veganism, meat for a treatism, ultimately this country is still very much rooted in meat makes a meal. Proven by the fact that places are defaulting to meat options when they're limiting their menus. So that still feels a bit sad. But hey ho.
Let's change that by demanding the whole veggie menu back, but not the whole meat menu. You can keep that.
I feel like that would be the most privileged protest anyone's ever made if I went and stood in Pret and was like, give me the veggie sandwiches. Where's my cheese and pickle baguette?
Forget Extinction Rebellion, Sian.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what you should do.
Extinction Rebellion are down at Trafalgar Square saving the world. And I'm in Pret, Wood Green, saying, where's my avocado wrap?
You'd make the headlines, for sure. My eco poop is very poopy. It's very technical. So there's a lot of gadgets flying about, and a lot of them actually don't have a switch off button, like fully switch it off. It's dead. It's not consuming any electricity. Nothing is, no light is blinking, nothing is sleeping. I'm doing the quotation mark standard podcasting device. So I saw this with my parents' radio. The blue light is always on, and it's just for convenience, isn't it? It's just so I can be like, ooh, when I listen to the radio, I just need to press a button and it comes on. But enough with that. A device also deserves a good night's sleep, which means it's fully switched off.
I feel like a lot of people would say that the amount of energy a small light takes is like, oh, but that's negligible. But the point is that if that's happening in like on 5 devices in every house, on every street, in every city, in every country, it's the snowflake thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's like an unnecessary avalanche of energy use.
There used to be a switch, like a hard click, and then it's switched on, but then you click and then it's dead. I want that back.
Simon, that requires you to get up off of the sofa, and I, for one, am not willing to do that.
Yeah. You know, we should all be not even walking around. We should be sitting in these little caddies driving through our flat with a robot following us.
You know, in Wall-E,
Oh, yeah.
I actually think I'd be one of those people. I'd be one of the really overweight people in the car, in the kind of flying seats, just eating and watching TV all day.
Easily done. Easily done.
But not with you around to hold me to account.
Yes, exactly.
And if you too feel that way, then get in touch with us. How can they do that?
You can do that on one of your standby devices at Green Pretenders. Make sure that once you've followed us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, that you pull the plug on your device. You can also send us an email, thegreenpretenders@gmail.com. If you have a bit of time, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, or leave us a comment on YouTube.
Thank you for listening, and remember, the pod is always greener.